Hello and welcome to the third round of the WCL GT3 series. There's been a pattern of exceptional racing the last few weeks, especially last week out in Imola, but tonight we're at the Circuit de la Sarthe, and I think that trend is going to continue. And although this isn't another Formula One track, it's still filled with a lot of racing prestige, especially a win in the French countryside is something every driver sets out to accomplish. And John, I couldn't imagine an endurance racing series not coming to, of course, the Circuit de la Sarthe throughout its entirety of what's going to go on. This is one of those tracks that every driver sets out to win, especially with the 24-hour race that they have here. And I think this is just a classic racetrack.
It is, and this is a very historic track. You think you can go back and think of the history of this track. Many different formations of this track too, and you're 100% right. If you're running any kind of endurance or sprint and you're over in Europe, this is definitely a bucket list track that you really should be going to. And everybody knows it as Le Mans, and you know what? It's going to put on a show. I hear we might even see some more bump drafting, a lot of great places to do some overtaking and braking and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, Le Mans is always a racetrack that's going to put on a lot of good side-by-side racing action, and it's got a lot of overtaking possibilities, especially as the night continues, where you'll have guys drafting, and these cars especially punch quite a rather large hole in the air for one another, gives people a lot of opportunity to pull off what's known as a slingshot.
Yeah, and these cars, the way they get a little bit of a toe. They don't get the big toe that a lot of our American fans will think when they see NASCAR or IndyCar, but they get enough of a toe where they can go through and slingshot on these long stretches here.
Taking a look now at the championship standings, we're going to start with the pro category and then work our way down into the AM class. Harry Wills currently leads the championship standings for the pro category. Kai Dial coming off the back-to-back wins there in this series, this championship, I should say. He's within a single point there of Harry. Harry's been on a string of podium finishes. Alex Murray there in third. Chase Wilson rounding out the top five. And how about Jacob Schneider? He's one of those drivers. He's really fast, and he's shown it a couple times, but he just continues to have some kind of rotten luck, I'll call it, towards the end of these last couple of races. Transitioning now into the Pro-Am category. A driver currently sitting atop the point standings in this class, Rich Calais. He's had a lot of strong finishes these last couple of weeks. You've got Blake Scott up there as well. He and Shreyas Vendikaraju are actually tied right now for that second place points position. Justin Rousseau and Christopher Johnson round out the top five. Good to see Andrew Hewson up there still inside the top 10. And how about Jeff Carollo? He's just showing what you can do when you show up to these races and just really give it everything you got and try to complete all the laps that you can. And now, last but certainly not least, we'll transition to the AM category. Currently sitting atop the points is Matthew Plaisance. Really not hard to figure out why he's up there. He's had a win, a lot of podiums. I think he's podiumed every single week in the amateur class, so really good to see him up there as well. He only has a 4-point lead, though, over Aaron Beaver. Aaron had a really strong race last time when we were out at Imola. Good to see Rick Swan in there in the podium. John Casey rounds out your top five. And then, of course, you've got Nicholas Clement there inside the top 10. Kind of hold on to that four-way tie, for all the drivers there from 10th on down to the bottom. But without further ado, we'll go ahead and run you folks at home through the starting order for our races tonight. Drivers had a quick qualifying session before this. That's how they're choosing to line up the grid. Harry Wills is going to start on pole in the pro category, followed by Ethan Bass in second. Kai DL is going to roll off in third, followed by Dean Timms in fourth with Chase Wilson in fifth. Kyle Boss is going to roll off in the sixth position. And rounding out the pro category, you've got Jeremy Littleton, Chris Long, and James Pierce in the ninth position. Blake Scott's going to sit on the pole for the Pro-Am category. Mark Scott to his outside in second. Shreyas Vendikaraju in the 77 cars in third with Derek Miller in fourth. Rich Calais rounds out the top five starting spots with Kyle Smith in sixth, Andrew Houston 7, Justin Rousseau in eighth, Braden Melling rounds out the 9-car field. Aaron Beaver is sitting on pole in the AM category, followed by Rick Swan, Matthew Plaisance, John Casey, Greg Brockway, Eric Papineau, Eli Sasick, and Mark Chapman round out the 8-car starting field. John, a little bit lighter field than we're used to seeing in all the classes this week, and surprisingly, they've all got just about an even number of cars in each of them. Usually you'll see a kind of split decision where you'll have a lot of the Pro-Am guys show up. We've had that the last couple of weeks, and then the AM guys kind of a late field, but today it's pretty much dead even along all three of them.
Yeah, lighter field, but all our key players are all here. You know, we've got tight point races in all three divisions here, so look for that to continue. And guys are, it's a little early in the season probably to be points racing, but you know, it's always got to be in the back of your mind to score as many as you can.
Yeah, certainly, and sometimes it's not just about maximizing the good days to bring home a championship run. It's about minimizing the bad ones. Harry Will's one of those drivers. He's sitting on pole. He certainly looked to kind of continue this hot streak he's on. Of course, qualified first there in the qualifying session in this Twisted Racing Mercedes, currently following the iRacing pace car round. A little bit of a longer pace lap here at the Le Mans, but luckily it's not the entire pace lap. I've had to do that a couple times, and boy, it takes about, what like 6 minutes or so, maybe 7 or 8 under caution speed.
Yeah, this is a large track, and you see the flyover that just went over. You see him right up there on the top of your screen, possibly. This is one of the cool tracks that does that. And I remember the first time I raced here, and all of a sudden I see that flyover, and it grabs your attention for sure.
It really does. Just up the track there, you see the iRacing pace car taking a little bit of a weird entry to pit road. Not really going to put any of the drivers off there. Harry Wills is going to start the race whenever he deems necessary. He has a large opportunity of when he wants to go. iRacing will wave the green flag, but it's up to Harry or the pole sitter. In every race, they kind of give these guys a large area of when they can start the race. He put his foot on the loud pedal as soon as they crossed the start-finish line. He really caught Ethan Bass sleeping. You can see he fell back a good, 5 or 6 positions there. That's that teal-colored BMW you see in the middle now, left-hand side of your screen. He's already lost 6 spots currently. As we go back now to the Pro-Am category, Blake Scott has control of the field. He's going to make these drivers wait quite a lot longer than Harry did, bringing the Pro field to green. He waited almost the entirety of the way down the straightaway before he put his foot on the loud pedal. He's going to start the race now for the Pro-Am guys. And last but not least in the Am category, Aaron Beaver, control of the field. Waiting about halfway down, so kind of a little bit of a Goldilocks going on there. You got beginning, end, and middle there finally for Aaron Beaver. So with that, John, all 3 of our classes are underway here at Le Mans.
Yeah, they are, and it's a big track, but so much of road racing is rhythm. Once you kind of get around, and here with it being such a big track, usually instead of taking 1 or 2 laps to probably get in that full rhythm. Usually for me anyway, it takes maybe 3 or 4 because the parts of the track, the sectors, all drive completely different. You've got a wide array of things that you've got to do here. So each little area that you go into presents its own challenges, but nonetheless, you can get into a rhythm here.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on that because Le Mans is one of those tracks where, because it is such a long track, I mean, it's 8.4 miles. Usually we're used to racing on tracks that are maybe 4 on the long side of things. So when you come to Le Mans, because the track is so long, with a shorter track, you get more repetition in things. You can kind of recall what the car is going to handle like and drive like in all these corners much faster. Whereas at Le Mans, it's basically 2 or 3 times as long as a lot of the other road racing tracks that we'll visit during the course of a road racing season. So here, it takes drivers a lot longer to kind of get back into that rhythm. And another thing that Le Mans is known for is these extremely long straightaways, even with the addition of the 2 chicanes down the back straightaway. Still got a lot of opportunity for these drivers. Basically, you can almost kind of fall asleep, I feel like.
Yeah, you can. Especially in these cars, in the higher power prototypes, you do fly down these long straightaways here. But I will say this, in these GT3 cars, it takes a little bit of time to get down them, but it sets you up with a great passing opportunity at the end of these. Coming up here to the Indianapolis turn is one of the great places if you want to overtake, is a great opportunity.
Yeah, certainly. You can see all three of the Twisted Racing cars running 1, 2, and 3. Not a single one of them thinking about putting a move yet on the team boss. He's also the league owner, too. And, John, you and I can attest to this. Whenever you're racing around the league owner, you kind of race him by maybe putting like an extra inch or two, maybe a foot in between your car and his compared to how you race some of the other guys in the league.
You might, but I'm not smart enough to do that. I just see a guy I'm trying to pass usually, and if I bump him, I bump him. It's kind of that. It's always easier to ask for forgiveness than permission, so it's kind of more of a, hey, I didn't mean that, sorry. But I try to run clean as much as what I can here. But these guys being teammates and everything else, you know they're going to cut each other a break, you know, as they should. And you should be cutting your other competitors breaks this early on. We're a long way from the end of this thing.
Yeah, certainly hour and 15-minute race, 75 minutes. There is a mandatory pit stop that all these drivers have to do. And I still don't know, Daniel, do these drivers in the EE races, do they have to stop just once or twice? I can't remember. Okay, so in the EE race, just hearing from Daniel, our director producer for this deal, the drivers pitted twice, but they only need to pit for fuel once. It looks like one of the drivers got a big slowdown. That's Kai DL. Looks like he might have cut one of those chicanes a little bit too tight, got himself a slowdown. And just like we talked about last week at Imola, John, if you give away that much time due to a slowdown at the beginning of the race, instead of just losing a couple seconds, you're going to lose a couple seconds, a lot of positions on the racetrack. Yeah,
that's a lot of track position that you're giving up here. But there's a track to do that on. This is probably it, like you touched on. What is it, an 8-mile lap? You're going to have some time to try to get some of that back, you know. So, but the thing is, the time is winding down the same. So, no, we're not going to turn as many laps here, but you're going to have a lot more opportunities to get those spots back here, though, I do believe.
Well, one of the things that Le Mans is famous for, in my eyes at least, is the fact that you have these long straightaways to be able to pass a guy, get a run on him, but also as soon as you go out of the chicane, which you'll probably end up outbraking a guy into, going down the next straightaway, he then has an opportunity to get a big draft on you and outbrake you going into the next chicane. So you'll see a lot of drivers kind of going back and forth, swapping those slingshot maneuvers.
Oh, absolutely. I agree 100% here. And I'll tell you, from a driver's standpoint, that sure is fun, you know, and especially if you're doing it with somebody that you can trust and you know that they're not going to put you in a bad spot or themselves in a bad spot where you can wreck. Man, it becomes a lot of fun. But while you're having fun, though, you got to be making sure you're still looking out after those tires and your equipment.
Boy, the Pro-Am category, excuse me, has certainly broken itself apart. You've got the first two drivers separating themselves from the rest of the pack at least by just over 2 seconds, but that is absolutely nothing compared to the battle we have in the Am category. John Casey and Greg Brockway have got, what is that, a 5-second gap back to John Casey, Aaron Beaver, excuse me, and Matthew Plaisance have a huge gap to the rest of the field. There's even actually some Pro-Am drivers in between them and the rest of the Am field.
And you talked earlier about the drafting. There you go. One, two cars kind of pushing past another driver here. So Rick Swan leading this little bit of pack, but he's got somebody right there on his bumper, and it's pretty easy to pass like that.
There's a replay here of Derek Miller. You can see his on right there, center of your screen. Looks like, oh yeah, he just went a bit wide, got a little bit loose, and that rear end just kind of came around on. That is very reminiscent of, forget who it was, in the Williams F1 car at Bahrain 2 years ago or so.
Probably Latifi. I probably shouldn't say that over the air.
I think it was whoever was filling in for George Russell, and I can't remember the name.
All right. It's just, anytime I hear Williams, it's just a habit. So if there's any Latifi fans, just send your hate mail to Austin Belkey.
Well, John, you said it. I don't need to get that hate mail. I tell you what,
I don't know if we have any Canadians are not watching.
Battle for the Am category. Rick Swan is all over the rear end here of Derek Matthew Plaisance, I believe. No, that's someone else. He's hounding somebody. Oh, Mark Chapman, yeah, he's all over the rear end of Mark Chapman. Those two drivers continue to go at it. Mark Chapman, excuse me, on the rear end of Rick Swan. And to be fair to these guys, they lost another 3 seconds to Matthew Plaisance and the leader in this category, Aaron Beaver, this last lap alone. So they kind of need to start pulling some tricks out of the bag here if they want any chance of running them down.
Well, they need to stay in line, use the draft. You know, whenever they pull out and they get side by side, that slows them down. Get on each other's bumpers and try to run them down that way. That's their best bet to close that gap up.
Rick Swan, another one of our drivers, he's been pretty consistent about doing this. A, wearing that GoPro on his head to get some of that camera action for himself, and B, adding another camera so we can get kind of a look at his cockpit. And he's one of the only drivers I've ever seen with the seat that actually wraps around, much like what these drivers are going to be using in real life.
Yeah, he looks snugged up in that seat, and you know, I've sat in those full containment seats on more than one occasion, and I'm going to tell you, there's very few chairs I've been in my life that you can just take a nap in. I've had a couple nice containment seats where I could probably sleep in it better than I could have been. So comfort's a big thing, especially in a race car.
I couldn't agree more. Every time I've had the opportunity to sit in one of those seats, I feel like you just give me 15 minutes, close my eyes, I could be out like a light bulb, a good old 8-hour nap, easy on any given day in those seats. Dean Timms currently trying to chase down Chase Wilson. Dean Timms in his BMW, Chase in his Twisted Racing Lamborghini just up the road. See if this Prestadonna Nomad car can get by, but it looks like for right now, Harry Wills pretty handy lead, 2nd and a half, and all these drivers really having a difficult time drafting up to the car ahead of them.
Yeah, and I touched on that early on in the show. You know, it doesn't, the draft here doesn't work like what the folks over in the States will think about, you know, with NASCAR, IndyCar. And these cars have it, and as you can see from this shot here, it doesn't just suck you right up to the back of the car. It takes a while for that slingshot to work. But I almost wonder if Timms is just not staying in line here just to try to make speed to catch up with these other guys.
Well, he's right up to his back bumper right now. We'll see if he dives out. It looks like he's gonna, but then he thought better about it. You see Ethan Bass just behind him, kind of do a little bit of a checkup and drop back just a tad. Kind of thinks better of it there. I'm kind of surprised that Dean didn't shoot the car down to the inside. And this might just be him saving fuel. You know, the more you save fuel in these cars, the less fuel you have to get when you come down pit road for your pit stop. So he might just be trying to go with one of those strategies as well.
That, and there for a minute when he peeked out, it looked like Bass might have tried to take advantage of it and try to get to his outside. So he's playing a little bit of offense and defense there. So, you know, that's a very, very difficult thing to have to do within the car. You've got to be very measured where you're going to try to make your pass, and you got to make sure it works. The worst thing in the world is to try to set up a pass, go to make it, and you don't make it, and then the guys that are lined up behind you start freight training. That's what you got to be careful if you're in Tim's position here.
Yeah, it's a very precarious position there because, like you mentioned, if you don't make a move or it doesn't work out well for you, you can oftentimes get freight trained by the drivers behind you. Kyle Voss all the way in the rear end here of Ethan Bass, and sometimes, John, I don't know if it's what these drivers do in terms of balance of the car for aero. You know, some drivers do like to have a little bit more stability in the rear end of the car. That's one of the things that's going to increase drag. You might be better off in the corners, but you're going to be a lot worse down the straights. And that's kind of where you see some of these drivers. Maybe that's their pitfall. Replay here, Eric Papineau. Heading into Indianapolis, this looks like, yep. Oh, that's
like
quite
that
the lazy
back end
spin there.
Yeah, but still made contact with that barrier.
Yeah, and how about that BMW just up the road from Eric? Let's try to see who that was. Feel like it might have been Kyle Smith. It's hard to tell. Yeah, Kyle Smith was at BMW.
Oh, and he loses it again.
Oh,
now
man.
That's a big hit.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess.
Power up.
As I say, we've talked about this on other races. You get offline here in any of these tracks, iRacing's model, surface model, you will pick up debris on your tires and all of a sudden not have grip for a period of time until you get those tires cleaned back off. And that had to look after he had that one off. He back up to speed and his tires may not have been completely clear. Did not think he had the grip that he had, and around he went.
Yeah, I mean, that was a hard lick too. I mean, to pick that car up and spin it like a top, that was a
Yeah.
hard impact. Looking on board here at Andrew Hewson, you can see another one of our drivers in the Zoom call sharing his camera feed with us. Currently in his second position, he's got Mark Scott, though, and Rich Calais all over the rear end. And how about Shreyas Ventukaraju? He's back there waiting in the weeds, waiting for one of these guys to make a mistake.
I don't know, these guys that he's behind, we've been watching him a few weeks for now. If he's waiting for them to make a mistake, he may be waiting a while behind Rich Calais and Scott.
Yeah, those drivers not prone to be making very many mistakes as the race goes on, but anything can happen. I mean, it was in the pro category last week that, again, more drivers are not used to seeing make mistakes, and there was a synchronized spin from like 3 or 4 of them all at once. Racing down the back straightaway, though, in the pro category, looks like Ethan Boss trying to make a move up the inside of Dean Timms. They're going to be side by side through the second chicane here. This is the battle I was just talking about, exiting one of the chicanes. Looks like he's going to have this move made. Barely able to clear over to slap back in front of him. Now he's going to get a push. This is what you're talking about, John. This is him getting hung out to dry here. Dean Timms is not going to lose just one. He's going to lose another position here to, I believe, Kyle Boss. Yeah.
Yeah, because when you pull out like that, and you no longer have a tow from anybody in front of you, you're out there pushing the air all by yourself, which is going to slow you down. The guy that might not go with you on that pass, all of a sudden he's got a tow from the other guy and is able to fill that hole. Next thing you know, you're watching cars go by you.
Yeah, I tell you what, right now, Ethan Bass just became best friends with Kyle Boss because Kyle really did do a good job helping to kind of push him up ahead there. Up further ahead of those guys, I should say, in the Pro-Am category, you still got this phenomenal 3-wide battle here between Hewson, Scott, and Calais. This is looking on board with Mark Scott. You can see another driver, West Coast driver, as you can see all that light outside of his window next to him.
And again, just the intensity on those guys' face. Every week, I know we say it, but it's some serious business out there on the track.
Certainly is side by side here going into Indianapolis. That is one of the sketchiest parts of the racetrack, to go side by side. They're going to do it cleanly between the two drivers, Mark Scott, Andrew Hewson. Ooh, a little bit of that was kind of dodgy there. Rich Calais looking as the driver he wanted to follow.
Things almost got a little argy-bargy there with some guys trying to go 3 wide. That was a good idea. That was definitely a good idea to pull out of that strategy there.
Now you've got Rich Calais trying to see if he can make a move up one side or down the other right here of Andrew Hewson. Mark Scott, they're going to almost go 3 wide here as they now start to enter the Porsche or Corvette curves, whichever you'd rather call them. You still got the Porsche there on the grass and iRacing, but you know the naming rights have kind of gone back and forth. And for right now, it looks like Mark Scott going to keep that, get that second position there. Hewson forced to sit in that 3rd spot, but boy, it was almost extremely sketchy again going through those curves.
Again, that's probably a little bit of fun for the drivers there. You know, it's always fun to mix it up on the track, but when you calm down a minute and you realize, you look up at the time left or the lap you're on, you're like, man, it's probably a little early to be trying that kind of stuff. But it worked out for them, and it was entertaining for us to watch. So we like 3 wide. That's for sure.
We certainly do. One thing we don't like is drivers getting themselves slow downs. You saw Andrew Hewson kind of pull over there to let Rich Calais by, and he's going to let down Shreyas Ventukaraju as well. He got to slow down, finally giving up all that time at iRacing. This is one of the tracks they're extremely critical about drivers taking those shortcutting opportunities, and they're going to penalize you up one side and down the other. In the pro category, you've got Kyle Boss here trying to chase down Ethan Bass. Just behind these guys is Dean Timms. Just up the road is Chase Wilson. All these guys kind of, you could put a blanket. I mean, it's like, what, 2 seconds separating second place all the way down to 7th place?
Yeah, that's essentially 1 tire off, and you're going to lose several spots. That's how tight it is here.
Yeah, I say that now, and these guys have all caught up to Harry Wills. So right now, I feel like you could put the entire top 6 underneath, 2 seconds or so.
Yeah.
Chase Wilson
Wow.
making a look down to the inside of Harry Wills. Harry had to back out of it there just to make sure he was going to get through that corner cleanly, and that let Ethan Bass right on through.
And you saw the quick reactions from Kyle here. You know, what a nice drive there not to get in the back of him, recognize what was going on, react, and keep from making contact there. So well done, Kyle Boss there.
Yeah, now Kyle Boss being rewarded for that heads-up driving. He's going to take away the third spot right now from Harry Wills. That'll be the third spot Harry has lost this lap. He's going to have Dean Timms right on his heels, though, so he's got to make sure he doesn't lose yet another position. And I really feel like he's kind of fallen off pace here just a little bit in these last couple laps. I don't know if it's the dropping in the track temperature or what, but we're too wide for the lead as we go now down the kink into the back stretch. We're getting closer and closer. Second kink coming up right here. Now this is heading all the way down to Indianapolis.
And he may be falling back to get into the draft to save some fuel too, so don't rule that out either.
3 wide, 2 wide, goes down to 1 wide, single file through Indianapolis to make the hard left-hander now, setting themselves up to make the hard right-hander before they go down this double kink straightaway right here. Currently your leader, Ethan Bass, Chase Wilson behind him, Kyle Boss in third, Harry Wills fourth, Dean Timms in the 5th spot. Like
yeah,
for
they're
right
going to
now,
come through
Ethan
the
Bass
S's here.
I was
going to say they're coming up on the S's. Sorry, Austin. I was going to say they're coming up on the S's and they're peeking around each other. I don't know if they're done passing here for this lap.
I don't think they're done either. Going back down into the Pro-Am category, just heading through that section of corners behind after Indianapolis, excuse me. Matthew Plaisson, so he's eaten up a good 2.5 seconds of the lead of Aaron Beaver. He's got that thing down to 3 now, 0.6 of a second, so he's been doing a lot of work just to catch back up to Aaron. I'm kind of curious. Well, one driver, huge slowdown here. Oh, that's a slower class car, letting all the leaders by, excuse me. Okay, all right, director, producer Daniel telling us that next lap odds we're going to have a lot of the drivers start to come down pit road, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Harry Wills still in that 4th position. We'll see if he has anything left for these drivers. Ethan Bass currently in the front. He's the driver again, started in the 2nd spot, got a really rough start there off the race, and he fell back to what, the 6th position or something. Good going through here. This is one of the most crucial corners on the entire lap, John. Having to just set yourself up there for that double right-hander, and sometimes too, you really just have to commit to getting back on the power before you can even see the exit of the corner. And it's one of those places where if you get it right, you gain a lot of time, but if you get it wrong, you can lose a lot of time. And if you get it extra wrong, not only do you have a slow run down the straightaway here, but you can also get penalized as well by iRacing for going a little bit too wide.
Yeah, and I've managed to do all of the above. So that's one of my trouble areas here on this track for me anyway. But these guys, that's why they're, I guess, the pro category. These guys navigated it very well. Looks like they're all pretty even through that section.
Yeah, it's one of those corners where the good guys can get it right almost every time, and I've had a lot of trouble there myself. Pretty much this entire track is a problem area for me, with the exception of the Porsche curves. And that's pretty much all about momentum, and it's really easy to go through that section and not get past if you're a 10th or 2 slower. So usually I got to milk that for all I'm worth. Just taking a look here at James Pierce, currently in the 7th position. He's a driver. He's shown a lot of speed the last couple of weeks, but just not that race-winning kind of caliber that I'm sure he'd like to be exemplifying. Chase Wilson looking to make a move there down into the hairpin. Thought better of it. He's going to still just remain behind Ethan Bass. It looks like Dean Timms, he might have a slowdown. Let's take a quick look at that. He does not. Pull over and get out of the way, so we'll have to see what happens with the rest of this.
Again, I kind of have to wonder if he's slowing down and he doesn't have a slowdown. That has the look of a fuel strategy.
They were too wide there, thought better of it just before they got to Indianapolis. Currently, it's Chase Wilson in the second position. He's got Kyle Voss just behind, taking a peek wide there before they go into this corner. And he's been kind of looking up one side and down the other, trying to make a move. And again, Chase Wilson right now, he's in that precarious position because he wants to get around Ethan Bass, but he also doesn't want to get passed by Kyle Voss just behind him, because then not only did you try to get a spot, but you didn't get it, you've also fallen back another position. And especially at a track like this, it's hard to pass a car and keep that position.
I don't know why they make me nervous every time they dive down in there, because it looks like they're just always, on the last few laps they've come through that whole section, they've been almost too wide.
Yeah, you've got the two Scots, Blake and then Mark, and then Rich Kelly just behind those drivers. Shreyas Ventukaraju currently still in that fourth position. Andrew Houston, he's been mired back in fifth ever since he got that slowdown there a couple laps ago. Not many drivers going down onto pit road this time by, so odds are we'll see more and more guys continue to do that as the race progresses forward.
Yeah, and with a track that's 8 miles long, I don't know how much, the fuel, I think you'd almost have to get your number right, right on that number, because stretching it a couple laps, that's a long way, so short pitting, I don't know if that's the way to go here for our endurance race. So I will have to see how it all shakes out here, but man, I tell you, it's getting darker, and I do think they're going to start making more horsepower, and the speeds are going to continue to go up, though.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The more the speeds go up, well, the more the sun goes down, the faster these guys can afford to go around a lap, which means a lot more on throttle time. The more you've got that throttle depressed, the more RPM you're pulling, the more fuel you're going to burn. So these guys might continue to see worse and worse fuel mileage as the day goes on, just by virtue of increasing those lap speeds and decreasing the lap times. See just how big of a gap there you have from the front four drivers all the way to that last 5 or 6 there. The gap between him and IDL currently 2.5 seconds. That's a gap I was just talking about, long way back between the two Twisted Racing teammates. This is riding on board with Kyle Voss. He's the car in the third position. You can see just up the road Chase Wilson taking a look down the inside. Thinks better of it. Ethan Bass, your leader in that purple Ford GT, just up the road. Went a little bit wide there in corner exit. We'll see if Chase can take advantage. Looks like he'll be able to. And which car does Kyle Voss go with? Looks like he's going to follow Ethan. He's going to give him a little bit of a bump draft. I think he was pushing there for a split second. This is going to be the worst thing in the world, I tell you what, here for Chase Wilson. Yeah, he backed out of the throttle there, and he's forced to get back in line there in behind Kyle Voss. So instead of gaining a position after Ethan made that mistake, he's going to have to pay for Ethan's mistake there.
This really is a high-speed game of chess here with these guys. They're being very deliberate how they're approaching these passes and kind of rotating these spots around. It's really, really neat to see. And these guys, my hat's off to them. They're showing a lot of patience here in doing so.
A lot of skill as well. A couple updates for you folks at home. Braden Melling in the Pro-Am category has left the server, as has Eric Papineau. So both those drivers, Eric in the AM category, are out of the race. So not too much attrition here, which, I mean, these guys, a very, very talented group of racers. You don't expect to see too many retirees this far into a race, especially.
Yeah, the big challenge. The big challenge about this track is, it's not quite as technical as what we saw at Imola last week, but with the higher speeds here, if you miss something, usually it's pretty big. The penalty for getting out of shape, just like what we saw earlier with that lazy spin, and he popped the wall pretty hard. If you get out of shape here, bad things happen.
Yeah, and speaking of missing a corner, we missed a change there for the lead with all the other excitement on track. Matthew Plaisance has made his way around Aaron Beaver. One driver, Chase Wilson, ducking down onto pit road from third place in that pro category. So back down to the AM one. Matthew Plaisance up into that first position. He's looking for another win on the season. I believe he won in Daytona. Just have to verify in my notes here. And yes, he did win in Daytona, and he's coming off 2 second-place finishes back to back. This is a place for race for the lead in the pro category. Bass first, Boss second, Harry Wills in the third position just behind those guys. That's the Mercedes, you can see third in line.
You see a lot of guys there with the ticker up in the left-hand corner. A lot of guys are on pit road here.
Yeah, pit road business is picking up for those pit crews. Yeah, every Pro-Am car has gone into the pits this time by. That is surprising. Might see if we see the exact same kind of phenomena here in the AM category.
That
Again,
sounds like a
between
bit
all
of a
those
traffic
drivers.
jam.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see if there's any kind of collisions coming onto or off of the pit road.
Well, not even collisions, just missing your pit box, because sometimes when you come in, your box might be obstructed a little bit. So, you know what, if you've got to back your car up or whatever, and it takes you an extra half a second or so to get your crew on that car, well, you see how close they are on track, a half a second, guess what? You're way behind where you were before.
Yeah, that's a great example too. Most of the times you think about, you know, pit road troubles and having to go around a car in NASCAR with how small those pit boxes are, but you can have the same kind of deal going on in these races. One car is in front of your box, you kind of lose where that popsicle stick, as they call it in road racing, is. So you don't really have a good idea of where you want to have to stop the car inside your pit box. And sometimes, you know, you might have to put that car in reverse, especially, God forbid, you're too far over from one side or the other. That is a 3-point turn.
Yeah, I mean, there's that's probably the most difficulty if you're pitting with a group of cars like that. You know, finding that lollipop and getting stopped on it, and you know, the guys that can do that right on the, I mean, you can pick up time just for hitting your pit box perfect. Because iRacing you'll get a slower stop if you pull too far. There's a sweet spot to pull in there, and I mean, while the time is minimal, it doesn't take but, you know, blink of an eye on the track. And, I mean, look at these three guys right here. Blink of an eye, and you're, you know, from first to third.
Yeah, 3-wide battle here for the lead in the pro category right now going through Indianapolis. Harry Wills just in behind Kyle Voss there. He's the driver furthest to the right. And Ethan Bass in the fourth. He's the driver furthest on your left. Now in the right, that purple car. See who Harry decides to go with here. Looks like he's going to get hung out to dry. You can see Kyle Voss continues to push Ethan Bass. Kind of curious if those two cars are teammates with one another. Well, maybe not. I don't know if that's how you race a teammate. Johnny's going to go for the move for the lead here in the Porsche curbs. Harry Wills is going to follow him. Good heads-up driving there by Ethan Bass to see that Harry Wills just went to follow Kyle through. Ethan going to lose 2 positions, and Chris Long getting word that he's just disconnected from the server. So another driver in the pro category out of the race. See if any of those 3 drivers in the pro category decide to come down pit road this time by or not.
Yeah, and real quick, while those 3 were horsing around up front there, that's going to slow them down. They're on pit road now. Those other guys, if they got out and went nose to tail, I have to wonder if that might be beneficial for them time-wise.
Yeah, be awfully curious. You can see the rest of that pro category already went down pit road, so we'll get a good idea of which group was it faster to go in the pits as the you know, cars in the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th come down pit road. This is a replay here. This is looking at Chris Long. This is most likely the reason why he disconnected from the session. Oh, just got maybe a little bit too sideways. That's a hard lick.
Yeah, and that's the part. When you come through there, it invites you to get on the throttle way earlier than what you should, and getting on the throttle there because you're going to have wheel in turning to get on that straightaway there. the back end gets really light, and that's what happened there. He just lost it there and popped the wall pretty good.
So even without that horsing around that was being done with the top 3 drivers, Chase Wilson is still not even going to pass any of these guys. So not too surprising, but there's Chase. He's the driver in 4th position. Just up the road is his Twisted Racing teammate Harry. You can see him going by the boundary screen just right there. Daniel, if we can get another look there at that Chris Long wreck, that was, I'd like to see it again because I feel like the back fascia had like no business popping off the car when it did. I don't know if we can get a replay of that. Maybe I can go back in my own or watch the YouTube the YouTube video later. But that was kind of weird.
Yeah, that's one of those areas too. As I say, Austin, that's one of those areas too that you can make up a lot of speed there in that little chicane. Getting in, you know, guys that can brake a lot deeper without losing too much, it can really make some time there. But also the guys that can pick the throttle back up and shoot out of there will have great momentum coming down that long straightaway after that.
Yeah, there is an art to these chicanes as well. You have to approach them differently than any other. Even the 2 chicanes drive just a little bit differently, and the way you have to approach them kind of differs if you want to really extract all the pace out of the car. Interestingly enough here, John, Kyle Boss is like, he's at least a good, what, 2 or 3 seconds up the road from Harry Wills, the driver in 2nd place. So I don't know if he might underfuel the car just a little bit or what. No, his stop was 6 seconds or 0.6, Dan? Yeah, 6 seconds shorter. I was wondering how in the world he was able to get off pit road so much further ahead. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 6 seconds up the road from Harry right here. I don't know if that's underfueling the car. Maybe he feels like everybody's going to have to come down pit road again, or maybe he's just going to have to save like a pig, as our friend Frank Denny likes to say.
Yeah, I have to wonder too if some tires might have been put on a car. 6 seconds. That's a big difference in the pits.
Yeah, that's a lot of time to be gained or lost. So we'll have to see how it works out here for Kyle, because for right now it looks like he's the driver. Everybody else kind of had that equal pit stop, and he's the only guy.
You know, one thing that it could be, Austin, one thing it could have been, I don't know if Harry picked up any damage, but you know, in iRacing, if you damage your car, sometimes you'll pull in there and it'll give you optional repairs. You can pull out without fixing it. But on a track where aero is so important like this one, I have to wonder if he didn't have some damage somewhere, maybe getting up on one of the curves too much, or whatever the case might be, but that also could be a possibility.
Yeah, that's an excellent thought there, John. I'm surprised I hadn't thought about that myself. The reason I feel like it's not as large a possibility is that his stop was 6 seconds faster than Harry's and Ethan's. It would have been different maybe if, you know, if Ethan were to be 6 seconds up the road from Harry, like Kyle is right now. But I feel like it was just him taking less fuel or maybe not taking tires or something. But it's got to be something crazy and thinking outside the box. See the pit stop times on the screen for all of our drivers. So you can see Ethan had a 20.2. Everybody else in the 26 is Chase Wilson, James Pierce down there in the 24s. Of course, the standards to say that Harry not helping himself too much. They're going a little bit wide there on the exit of the 2nd chicane. You can see there's the rest of his Twisted Racing teammates. You got Pierce, DL, and Timms, and Jeremy Littleton.
Yeah, Bass was the only one that was, you know, faster than everybody else by a significant amount of time there.
And I can tell you, I was looking at all 3 of those front runners in the pro category going down pit road, and he didn't make any sort of hay or speed or cut a, you know, that chicane that you can have when you come down pit road. He just had a faster pit stop. We'll see if Harry can run him down. That last time by at the stripe, he was behind by 3.5 seconds just about. So we'll see if Harry has any pace in this car. Going to take a quick look at a replay. This is Mark Scott. Oh, wow, that's That's crazy. That is a pretty decent lick. Luckily, he hit the tire, so it shouldn't have bent up the car too much for his Porsche, but he was running in the second position. He was having a strong day, definitely in with a shot at the win here for the Pro-Am category today.
Yeah, and he hit it square too, which is going to help him out. One thing that we should talk about here is the sun is setting. So instead of all of a sudden your I don't want to say your braking points, but your visual cues on when to brake and turn in and all that changes now. It's going to change lap to lap, and the guys that can keep up with those changes and where your spot and your points, those are the guys that are going to make time up here probably over the second half of this race.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal point to make at this point in the race there, John. I know a lot of drivers, there's a particular birch tree before you, you use as your braking marker for that second chicane, and when it gets dark, you can't see it at all. And that's why I wasn't the biggest fan of using a tree off on the side of the road as a braking marker. Boy, I tell you what, when you can see it and you brake there, in the GTLM cars, at least it used to be, that was a perfect spot to brake and make the corner. Back further in the field in the M category, the battle for the lead is still between the two drivers. You can see Matthew Plaisance and Aaron Beaver. That is Plaisance in the Ferrari and Beaver in the Mercedes. Those two drivers separated by 0.3 of a second. They've been pretty much inseparable ever since we saw Plaisance run down Beaver there, and they've just been kind of nose to tail, kind of trying to lead back and forth just a little bit. Beaver had it. He started on the pole in this race, and he really wants that lead back.
Yeah, I think we've seen this movie before with Plaisance out front and Beaver behind him. I think we saw this last week.
Yeah, was it at Imola that Plaisance had the lead in both the races, and Beaver just, ran him down and passed him and just, continued to pull away with that lead. So, and took the win in both races. We'll see if he can do that today or if Plaisance can hold on for the victory.
Yeah, both those passes happened too with just a few minutes left.
Taking another look here at James Pierce, listed racing driver in his Lamborghini. Another one of our guys again using that face camera that you can see. Boy,
I don't know why, but when I look at, I was gonna say, I don't know why, but when I look at James and his face and with his headset and everything on, he looks like, I guess with he's got his belts over his shoulders there. He looks like a fighter pilot. I mean, if you just look at him, dude looks like a fighter pilot sitting there.
Yeah, I can't say wrong. I think the only thing that would complete his look is probably one of those fighter pilot helmets with the big old face shield on it that barely leaves enough room for his nose and his mouth.
Well, he looks like a World War II pilot is what he looks like.
Yep.
So all he would need is a yoke.
Yep. And not the kind from an egg. Let's just say that as well.
Yeah.
Position change on your screen. You can see there Chase Wilson taking a spot there from Kyle Boss. See if Chase can run down his Twisted Racing teammate there, Harry Wills. He's got 10 seconds up the road if he wants to get another spot. We'll see if he has any sort of chance at it. A lot of racing left though, John. We've got what, about 35 minutes left in the race.
Yeah, we do, and that's plenty of time to overcome any mistakes that you've made or anything like that. But the one thing is, we've talked about this before about, I hate to use the word fatigue because, I mean, this isn't a full-on, 2 or 3 hour stint, but it is longer than what you're used to going. And, the focus sometimes lags at the end of these just because with the long straightaways here, it kind of lulls you into a false sense of security, everything else, and all of a sudden you might miss your braking point going into the chicanes here in the backstretch, or up at Indianapolis, or maybe even through the Porsche curves. If you miss those marks by a little bit, we've already seen that big things can happen.
Matthew Plaisance has since pulled away an additional half a second here over Aaron Beaver. I'll be really interested to see just how much Aaron can run him down going down this back straightaway, because this is going to be a real testament to just how much both of these guys have dialed that rear wing out of their car and how how much speed they can have, just raw speed at the top of the rev limiter as they go down these straightaways.
Yeah, and the setups are what's going to really make the difference here too with this, because iRacing's done a pretty good job with the balance of power that they run through and make sure these guys are all pretty much stay on an even playing ground. You know, some cars got a little better torque. You know, we'll get that acceleration a little better than others. Some have better, you know, cut through the air on these long front stretches, back stretches, side stretches, a little bit better than what you know, maybe one of their other counterparts. But overall, the cars are really, really equal.
Yeah, I will say though too, this is a race that really benefits those Ferrari drivers, especially. The Ferrari is more so known for its ability to, like you were saying, John, cut through the air and allow that driver behind the wheel a much higher top speed than some of the others. Not by a lot, but a mile an hour or two is a lot at the end of these speedways, and like a good craftsman always does, you got to blame your tools.
Yeah, well, and the thing is too, is if you're cutting through the air and you got that high top speed, all of a sudden the guy that maybe doesn't quite have that can do better braking. He's got a little more wing in, and so you get there, and then, you know, that's where you kind of get a yo-yo effect. So trimming the car out really is based on driver comfort, but you got to be careful with what you're doing there. You want to cut through the air and have that, you know, that massive top line speed. All of a sudden that could lead to a problem in a braking zone. You know, you get on those brakes, and next thing you know, that back end gets light, will come around because you don't have that downforce with the wing. You know, you turn into a corner, you don't get that side force or anything like that. So setting up the car is incredibly important.
These drivers now getting closer and closer to going down this front stretch one more time. Chase Wilson continues, however, to lose time to his teammate Harry Wills, about 11 seconds now up the road. So it looks like we're going to have a pretty fierce battle going on here for the last step upon the Pro category podium. Back there in the Pro-Am category, Blake Scott, I mean, he was best friends with all those drivers, running each other side by side for a while, because it's allowed him to pull away to about a 10-second lead. And then there's 2 seconds separating the next couple of drivers: Rich Galay, Andrew Hushin, Trace Garage, and then an additional 5 seconds back to Justin Rousseau.
You know, a second ago, I did notice the Ferris wheel. Can we just all agree that all legitimate racetracks have Ferris wheels? I mean, the important ones or the best ones or something. Something about racetracks, Ferris wheels, they just hand in hand.
I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of good racetracks that don't have them. I will say, maybe it's kind of like every whale is a mammal, but not every mammal is a whale. If a track has a Ferris wheel, it's a great track. But if it, you know, a great track doesn't need to have a Ferris wheel to be a great track. Because like Bristol Motor Speedway is a great track, and it doesn't have a Ferris wheel.
Well, that's true, I suppose. But Daytona
what about
does.
the Chili Bowl, John? You're a dirt guy.
Well, outside the Chili Bowl has Ferris wheel. They just didn't put it on there.
Oh, well.
I mean, I'm the guy that's still complaining about
this.
Yeah, but I'm still the guy that's complaining that the Chicago Street Circuit doesn't have Navy Pier's, you know, Ferris wheel. I don't know how they missed that and didn't put that on there, but another soapbox for another day.
That's a good point, though. Like, I never really thought that they discounted the Navy Pier when they did the Chicago Street Circuit. You can see the blinky there of the headlights. Andrew Husson pulling over to the side there.
Well, I mean, the Chicago, they got the planetarium, they got the Shed Aquarium, they got Marshall Field's, the Field Museum. How do you not have a Navy Pier? But anyway, big soapbox for me on that one.
Shreyas Ventukaraju kind of going around Andrew there. I'd be curious to see. I feel like Andrew, it's a shame I didn't look in time. Oh, Shreyas now has a black flag, so looks like he's just got that. So they might see a kind of back and forth in position between those two drivers of Husson and Shreyas.
You know, if there's one thing not to, you know, help you stay on top of that wheel and not kind of, I don't want to use the word doze off, but become complacent in what you're doing, is being in a fight. Keeping in a fight definitely will keep you on your toes and on your mark, most likely.
New Jeremy Littleton, last place driver, still running on the field. He just got a black flag for a slowdown. Still, though, the battle for this last podium position in the pro category, this continues to be hotly contested between these three drivers, Chase Wilson, James Pierce, and Kyle Boss. All those three drivers, and I feel like the more they keep, messing around with each other, this is going to allow for Kai DL to come into this battle. And the last thing all these guys need is for Kai to get even more points.
Yeah, and he's got a knack for making sure he's finishing well up in the points here. So, yeah, they don't need to give him too much help to get up through there. That's for sure.
Yeah, coming off back-to-back wins, the last thing you want to give that guy is even more momentum for him to beat you even harder with in the coming weeks here. Dean Timms in the 7th position. He's right there on the rear end of Kai DL. So Kai not only just trying to run down those three drivers up the road from his, he's also got to keep an eye in the rearview mirror just behind him. Aaron Beaver and Matthew Plaisance. Beaver retook the lead there. Looks like he's going to be clear into it as they now break and get down into the Indianapolis complex of corners. See if Plaisance has anything left for him, or this is just the same song in a different verse between the battle between these two drivers here.
Yeah, and you talked about the Indianapolis curves. Next year or here in the States, we're going to have that total eclipse again. And I think Indianapolis Motor Speedway is opening its stands and its infield to go there. So if you're in around that area, how cool would that be to see a total eclipse from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway? That's almost enough maybe to get me to drive the 4 hours over to do it.
Well, it's about a 4-hour drive for me too. Maybe I might see you there.
Yeah, have to maybe think about it.
Yeah, cool time in Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Any opportunity you have to go there, seriously,
Yes.
It's a phenomenal place to go. Just as a racing fan, and if there is racing, all the more reason to go. There's so many great spots you could view the infield with. I was there with DJ Clark and Sean Ambrose for an event with Mike Yao, big friend, and pretty sure he's the big guy over at Sim Sports Solutions. He does a fantastic job. We were walking out at the track over there. So many fantastic angles to watch the race from. You really get up close and personal with all the cars, especially on the road course.
Absolutely. But, these guys, it's continuing to get dark here. And I'm really honestly surprised that we haven't seen anybody put a tire off. I mean, that's a tribute to these guys and just how good they are. I really would have thought we would have seen maybe just a little bit some mistakes being made here in this transition, but they just have not done that, and that's pretty remarkable. So good on them for that.
Yeah, these guys continue to do an absolutely great job as time goes on here. They've just been clicking off fast laps. There's been a couple drivers, putting a tire wrong here and there, but seriously, for the amount of drivers we had and for as little mistakes as have being made, it truly is a testament to just how much these guys, are really just, they kind of read up on their tracks and stuff. They know how to drive all the corners here, but not just that, they have to put in a ton of practice time to develop these, these setups for the cars, because you have to make sure you're comfortable with it. You have to make sure you know your way around, and you have to make sure it's under you for the entirety of a run, and these runs can last like 45 minutes or something. So to go through a run a couple times to make sure you know what the car has, you're looking at like 3 hours of practice just for seeing what the car has on the long run. That's not even just for making minute adjustments to see if you can gain speed over a couple laps.
Yeah, and one other thing we should mention too is before the darkness fell and iRacing was no longer allowed to carry the 24 hours Le Mans, that was one of the best attended events. So I will just go out on a pretty thin limb here and say, I bet you a lot of these guys have a lot of laps here because of that 24-hour deal.
Oh yeah, and now you still do have some leagues putting on 24-hour events. Certain ones, I won't mention just to not get them in trouble with their 24-hour race.
Well,
that I'm
iRacing,
body of them I wouldn't like.
Well, last year iRacing still did. Remember they did that 24-hour series? They did like six of them. Yeah. So I mean, they're not in the position with Le Mans here like they are with with the open wheel American Open Wheel Series. I don't even know if we're allowed to even mention them anymore, but we'll just say they're they run at Indianapolis. There you go.
Yes, excellent point. Excellent point. Yeah, I mean too. The people love the Le Mans. Whoa, That was a close move there. I'm not sure quite who
Yeah.
that was. That was a Twisted Racing Lamborghini of some sort. I don't know if that was Kyle Boss, James Pierce getting a slowdown or what. Was it
Boy, look
James
at
Pierce,
this. Bump.
Yeah, James Pierce. Yeah, bump drafting, though, like you were saying, John, here into turn 1 at Le Mans.
Yeah, and the big thing that he did there, you notice how he immediately got off that bumper when it came time to make a turn. So, you know, there is a technique and definitely a skill level that takes to be able to do that. You've got to know where to hit them, how to hit them. You know, you want to hit them square, not towards the side. You know, you definitely don't want to get into somebody and turn them. So there's an art form to getting up there and pushing somebody along.
Yeah, there certainly is, because if you do it too hard, you're definitely going to send them into the next corner. And if you don't send them into the next corner, you can oftentimes just, you know, kind of push in the nose of your race car, and that's going to hurt you a good couple of counts of that the slipstream. Not just in downforce, it might even add downforce, but at a track like this, last thing you want is more downforce on the front end of your race car, especially if it means a detriment to your top end speed.
Absolutely.
And these guys are doing the better part of 170 some miles an hour at the end of these long straightaways. And boy, if you could just imagine being here in the 70s and the 80s and the 60s before they had these chicanes put in. I'm not quite sure when they put in the chicanes, but I mean, these cars, the entire back straight here used to be straight, entirely straight, and you'd just be flat-footed all the way down there.
You know, anybody watching, you know, after the broadcast, they can go out to YouTube. They used to, when they did that, you go out there and just type in blow over at Le Mans, and I'm telling you.
Mark Webber.
Yeah, Mark, very good point. Mark Webber, but he's not the only one. There was several guys in those prototypes that took flight down that backstretch. I think Webber did it after the chicanes were put in.
I'm not sure. I know, and for those of you folks at home kind of in disbelief, you see Aaron Beaver, excuse me, just down pit road now coming back off of it, so it looks like 2 stops for him. We'll see if anybody else makes their second stop down pit road enough to keep abreast of that, but basically the car gets just the slightest bit of air underneath it, and there's nowhere for it to escape. The car's going so fast it basically just acts as a giant airfoil and pushes that car up and flings it over on its roof, and I think they found him like, what, 40 yards or 40 feet or something off to the side of the track, upside down in his Mercedes, I think.
Yeah, in this shot here, you can see the tree line, and let's just say that he almost, at least the video that I saw, he was on the upper limits of the tree line in that incident.
Yep. Yeah, big time. And it's not like the trees have just grown up in the last 20 or 30 years. They've been tall like that for a while.
Yeah, not only that, but another legendary, I guess, thing that happened with, I mean, I can't ever see a race now here without thinking of that movie Ford versus Ferrari. What a great movie that was, and that really highlighted what it means to try to win Le Mans.
Yeah, well, especially back in the day, too, that really showcased a lot of what it was like to push the boundaries and the limits of cars back in that day, because anymore, you know, it still is, you know, kind of just you're lucky in and of itself to finish the 24 hours, but it does mean you have to be running the entire time. Not too many times can you see a car have some sort of a large problem like Toyota did a couple laps ago. There were 3 laps done at one point in the race. You see 2 drivers, I believe that's Chase Wilson and James Pierce, the 2 Twisted Racing Lamborghinis now cutting themselves, bringing themselves down pit road, and they're going to leave Kyle Boss out there on the track all by himself.
And for Kyle, that's an opportunity you want to push. If you're out there by yourself, you want to see if you can make up any time that you possibly can, or make sure you're not making a mistake and losing time. So it's one of those, go fast, don't make any mistakes, but get all you can get.
Yeah, especially for Harry Wills, it's the exact same thing. And Ethan Bass just came down pit road as well. He's handed the lead now back over to Harry Wills in his Mercedes. So I'll be really interested to see here what kind of pit stop times that these guys are getting, because this might be where we see an inversion. Remember, this time by down pit road, Ethan Bass took a 26-second pit stop, and now Harry Wills can take a 20-second pit stop. So we might see that 6 seconds kind of flip-flop between these guys. Yeah, 17.5-second pit stop there for Ethan Bass. So maybe, Daniel, we can continue to get a look at all these pit stop times because I know Pierce and Wilson just came down pit road. I'd be curious to see how long their pit stop was as well, so the folks at home can see it on their screens as well. And just like that, all the Pro-Am guys coming down pit road all at once as a group. You can see the pit stop times on your screen. So yeah, Ethan Bass, 17 seconds. Again, shorter than everybody else's down pit road. Kai Diel, second shortest time right now, 20 and 21 seconds respectively for the two Twisted Racing teammates. You can see in live time as all the Pro-Am drivers are taking their pit stops.
Yeah, and it's really surprising because, you know, with, I don't know, just under 20 minutes to play here, iRacing recently helped those of us that are mathematically challenged out with the auto fuel. So you would think, I guess, depending on how full your tank was, you know, they can plug in here and iRacing will figure out and calculate how much fuel they need to get to the end.
Well, they can also, iRacing, again, kind of a CYA, and I won't talk about what that three-letter acronym means, but we use it a lot, at least, you know, in my work. iRacing does allow the drivers to kind of adjust how much of a buffer they want above or below, kind of a tolerance, if you will, of say, you know, you want to make it, but you want an extra lap of fuel. They'll make it allowable so that you can tell iRacing, hey, I want an extra lap. It'll give you what it believes to be the end of the race plus an extra lap, just so you do kind of have a little bit of a safe buffer. Here's the two Twisted Racing teammates there, Pierce and Wilson in their Lamborghinis, currently running in 5th and 6th position.
I don't really run a lot of races where I've gotten the opportunity to use that, but like I said, for those of us mathematically challenged, I like it.
Yeah, I haven't had the opportunity yet, but I can tell you, I, for one, I have made spreadsheets in the past. I'll be using my spreadsheet again to make sure I have a good fuel mileage calculation, and I will be seeing how accurate the iRacing one is because I can add in my own buffer as well to say I'd like to be safe by a lap. Harry Wheels has come out of the Porsche curves through the last couple of chicanes here, whether it's the Ford or the Bugatti chicanes. See if he ducks down pit road this time by. Indeed, he will. So we'll have to see how long his pit stop is here, and we'll have to judge how close he comes out in relationship here to Ethan Bass. If you're looking at right now, Kyle Voss, I expect him to come down pit road this time by as well. And it looks like he is going to be going down pit road this time by too.
It's cool that they're racing here into the night, though, because I'll tell you, coming through right in front of where the pits are has got to be one of the most iconic portions of any racetrack. You know, not the most, but one of the most. You know, that big Rolex thing. I mean, it's, I don't know. Every time I've ever been here at night and driving through there, it's hard not to kind of look around and not take that in.
Yep, I look at it pretty much every time I come off the last chicane there, just to glance over at how neat it is to be racing. But that just beside me, it looks like Ethan Bass has retaken the lead over Harry Wills. Daniel, just to give the folks at home just an idea of how long Harry's pit stop was, if we can get those numbers back up on the screen one more time. And I do really love here, especially with the SimSport Solutions guys, for really any league they cover, how much information they are willing and love to give to the fans at home so that you can see, because for some of the people that really think about the math and the strategy behind all these things, it is nice to see it. So Harry Wills, an 18.6 second stop for him. It looks like he lost about 1.2 seconds in the pits alone to Ethan. We'll see if he can run him back down here. And this also might just be Harry can go, you know, kind of all out, balls to the wall to the end of the race, and Ethan Bass might have to save just a little bit in the Pro-Am category. You know, I hate to say it. Hopefully we don't jinx the guy, so knock on wood or glass, whatever you'd prefer. for Blake Scott, but he has a 10.5-second lead over Rich Calais. So for him, just bring that car home in one piece, buddy. In the AM category, Matthew Plaisance once again retaking the lead over Aaron Beaver. We'll have to see if the story continues between those two drivers, if Aaron pretty much always hunting down Matthew and taking over the lead from him. We'll see if Matthew can hold on to it this time.
Well, he did in Daytona, so I mean, he knows how to get it done and finish out a race here. So it isn't like he's a stranger to this position. You know, he's almost. The funny thing is, he's almost in the same category as your Pro-Am leader, Scott. It's a matter of keeping the car on the track, hitting your marks, not making any mistakes. I mean, that's really the mindset that he needs to have. Obviously, you want to still be smooth and fast, but you know, the time to be taking any kind of risk trying to push to make up time, that time is come and gone. He just needs to be solid here for the rest of this.
We continue to ride on board here with Harry Wills. This is a look just over his right shoulder through the cockpit and out of the windshield. The driver just up the road from him is Ethan Bass. He's currently the leader in the Pro category. Harry, as always, trying to hunt him down. Doing a good job to cut into his lead little by little the entire course around this lap here, and I'll be interested to see which driver has a better hold on their tires as the race gets closer and closer to finishing. We've got about 12 minutes left in this race, and I really do like how these guys at World Series League set this race up to be a transition from day into nighttime. It's one of the coolest features that iRacing has had since they brought it out, and I think it's been one of the absolute best additions to the sim is the transition that you have. And it's slow too. You don't notice it minute by minute, but eventually you're driving around, you're like, geez, it's dark. When did the headlights turn on?
Yeah, the very first 24 hours of Daytona that I was fortunate enough to run, it was daylight the whole 24, and I what a difference! Like you said, the transition the next year that we had, and you know, from immersion and everything else, iRacing did a nice job in bringing that in, and we've got another one coming up. I think rain is coming here in the not too distant future. I'm guessing the summer here. That's going to add yet another wrinkle to everything going on too.
Yeah, it's going to be just the same as I didn't ever run any of those endurance races, so you see a two-wide battle here. This is for the 4th position in the Pro-Am category. Andrew Hewson, Justin Rousseau. Looks like, they're going to continue to run 2x2 here. We'll see who outbreaks each other as they go down into Indianapolis. It looks like for right now, Houston is going to take over that position, so move him up into the 4th position. Justin Rostow forced to settle for the 5th spot for right now. But back to what I was saying, I never had the opportunity to run an iRacing in those entire, daylight endurance races. I came in Sebring 2019, and that was the first endurance race I drove in, and they had the day-to-night transitions then. Oh, the replay here, Aaron Beaver in the AM category, and you can see on the left-hand side of your screen before he went here, he lost a chunk of time here. Let's see where it all went wrong for him. Oh, he just caught the curb a little bit wrong. That was a pretty hard look in the inside wall. Not the hardest, though. Looks like he's still got a pretty decent control. Oh, that hurt a little bit more.
I was going to say, he wanted to make both sides even there, but...
Into the 360 just for sport. Almost. Yeah, that's a third dink there. Nothing like a 5-point turn. Get that car.
Yeah, I think that's the thing where I think his tires got a little dirty and gassing it up, and I think he's frustrated with himself there. My guess is, and when you're chasing somebody down, you can see him a little ways up the track, out your front windshield there. It's tough to stay disciplined. It really, really is, and you're pushing, and like we're not in full dark yet, but we're definitely getting there, and it becomes a lot harder to see here. But as we look at James Pierce here, this is the other thing about racing at night. All of a sudden, keeping track where somebody is around you, that also becomes a challenge. It's tough to kind of maintain. If you're going in side by side, it can be a little bit more sketchy than what it is during the day.
Certainly, James Pierce continues to race alongside and hunt down his Twisted Racing teammate there. Another driver, Chase Wilson, just up the road. And you can see, John, one of the other challenges, especially with that day to night transition, is when you start out on the sim and it's daytime, you're not really too hindered by the fact that your lights are on in your room behind you. And then when it transitions to night, it becomes even harder to see because of all that ambient lighting in the room behind you. I know, I remember one time, I think that 2020 Rolex 24, I actually had to call my mom into the living room to come close the blinds because I couldn't see a single thing. That's how dark it was at the track with the ambient lighting and the rest of the living room blinds. I made her come into the room and close them so I could see where I was going.
Well, lucky for me in VR, none of that's an issue.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, I was just about to touch on this. Harry Wills has been slowly but surely reeling in Ethan Bass, and just like I said, Daniel and all the SimSport solution guys for these WSL broadcasts, and really any broadcast, pull out all the stops. You can see all the information, all the sector times at the bottom of your screen. This is a comparison between Harry Wills and Ethan Bass, and you can see there Wills been reeling him in these last couple laps here, down to 0.8 seconds of a lead.
Yeah, that gap is definitely closing here. And you forgot to touch on the one thing too about the transitions though with you. You're talking about your light is there's been more than one time I've been racing at night, even though it's in broad daylight here, and I'll take that VR off and I go full vampire mode and it's like go blind for a minute.
Yeah, it kind of like the same as when you're in class and a teacher gets to showing a movie and goes to darkness. They always say like, "All right, close your eyes. I'm going to turn the lights back on." And yeah, that is a that is a harsh transition. And boy, Harry Wills, he's reeled him in a good couple tenths here. These last couple of corners, I mean, he's on him, and I feel like both these guys are feeling the pressure of what's kind of at stake here in the next 7 minutes or so in this race.
Yeah, and this is where Harry needs to be incredibly disciplined too. Or like I had touched on earlier, you see that guy out your front windshield, you know you're a little bit faster. So you've got to resist the temptation to try to get that little bit more to try to close that gap. If you can see you're faster, then you just need to do what you're doing and you'll get to them. But where you get yourself in trouble is getting greedy and trying to get that little bit more just to close that gap.
Yeah, certainly. You can see just how much he's closing down too. At this point in the race here, John, he can sniff kind of that slipstream going down the back straightaway. And I'm glad you touched on it too at the top of the broadcast. It's not like you would see between NASCARs or Indy cars or something. You know, it is very noticeable for these drivers, but it's not as big of a run as you'd expect to see at a Daytona or something.
No, and I think that has a lot to do with the balance of power too that they do with these cars. But, you know, right now, I think not even the slipstreaming is what's important. It's the staying disciplined, not making the mistake. I mean, think of it like this. My wife loves to tell me when I'm driving that hey, you probably shouldn't be speeding because it's going to take you longer if you get pulled over. Now, I don't really know what kind of logic that really is because it never happens, but that's just it. You don't want to get caught doing something else like a slowdown, cutting a corner, not even missing your mark. But we've seen some guys get some slowdowns. With 5 minutes to play, you get a slowdown here, game over.
Yeah, and Harry Wills all the way up to the underneath the rear wing right now of Ethan Bass. This is for the lead in class. This is for the overall lead in the race. And, talking about that slipstream, it doesn't do a whole lot, but boy, when you get it up inside that second or so of a gap and it starts to get closer and closer, it does help you kind of close in on that guy just up the road. But John, one thing it also does, it'll hurt you too. You get, loss of downforce and these longer, faster corners where there's a lot of speed for these guys. All that dirty air is really going to hurt the balance and, the overall turning ability of these race cars. You can see Harry's starting to get a little bit antsy right now.
Well, he should be. Time is running out here. In fact, with the lap times these guys run, I'm only thinking they're going to have a lap, or two maybe 2 laps left.
I think this might be it. We'll have to see when they get here to the start-finish straight. They've been doing almost 4-minute lap time, so even if they were to cross the start-finish line right about now, we'd still see the white flag, so I think they're going to get it this time by, so Harry's going to have the rest of this lap and next lap if he wants to get it.
Man, that is close.
And those guys almost nose to tail in the Porsche curves right now, just getting out of them now, heading into the chicanes here down the back stretch.
How many races have we seen with this group just come down to the last couple minutes of a race? This is just incredible.
And if I didn't know any better too, John, I would have to swear that they are scripted, the way some of these things unfold. And I've been lucky enough to commentate for these group of drivers in this league many times over and over again. And I swear, if I didn't know any better, I'd tell you they scripted this stuff, because sometimes you just can't make it up.
Yeah, and I think where Harry is going to get him, just judging on how he's sizing him up, I'm not so sure that he's not going to try to get a toe from him and then pull out, not in the middle of the stretch to do like a slingshot, but pull out right as you're entering a braking zone and then trying to outbrake him with just that little bit of momentum. Watch for that, maybe going into these chicanes here along this back part of this track.
Yeah, and he's going to have to time it too, because if he isn't careful, he might open up the door for Ethan to do the exact same thing on him. And coming out of that last corner, Harry had a little bit of a snap of oversteer. Wasn't a lot to kill his momentum here, but he certainly continues to lose a little bit of time going down these straightaways, and he's usually been even better than Ethan, especially on corner exit.
I love that shot right there where you see all the green lights all down that stretch there.
This is heading into the first of the chicanes. They're barreling down towards it. Harry Wheels not quite close enough, but just in that braking zone, he's closed up in on him. He was able to rotate through that chicane a lot better than Ethan. He might be able to get him here. Even if he doesn't get him into a corner, he might just wait for him to run a little bit wide. He's been doing a really good job of getting that car to cut through the center.
Yeah, he's driving it a little bit deeper here, and like I said, that's where I would kind of guess where this pass is going to come, if it's going to come. There he goes, right into that braking zone. Nope, changed his mind.
Oh, he thought about it. That was a good.
He got it. He got it.
Yeah, side by side. Oh, he moved it. He made it. He almost
right there.
jobbed him in there.
Right there in that braking zone. I see it coming the way he was sizing him up there in that previous lap, and sure enough, that's right where he got him.
That's a good move. I like that little forfeit that Harry pulled on him. I might have to try that out myself.
Well, in these cars, that's where to do it, because you don't get the big slingshot effect, but you do have momentum, and if you pull out right at the tip of a braking zone, you get a magnificent opportunity to outbrake him.
Just how much Ethan ran him down there. I think Ethan has a lot more straight line speed in his car, and I think that's why it was a little bit more difficult for Harry to pull up to him than it was for Ethan to pull up to Harry. Look at how much he's going to gain on him going down this back straightaway as they get closer.
Yeah, and now is he going to try to do the same thing here?
This might cost him. Different battle on track here. This is for fourth and third as we have a battle for the lead. It's changed hands. Ethan has gone to the lead here. He's just barely made that pass on him going into Indianapolis to see if Harry has anything for him. Not quite. He's going to try another over-under. Still nothing for him. And time is running out. That was Harry's opportunity to hold on to the lead. And I was thinking he better hold on to that. Otherwise, Ethan's going to have a big opportunity. Side by side, they almost touch there as they come out of that right-hander.
Yeah, he's going to have to set him up in a braking zone again. I think you're right. I think
he's going to get him into a corner.
Yeah, Ethan has, I think, a lot more straight line speed than what Harry does.
But Harry is much better into the corners. They're side by side. They continue to be. They're going to hit these Porsche curbs. I'll be interested to see who's going to win out. They're side by side. Is it good? This is not a place that you want to have to make an overtake.
No, that's a game of chicken right there. That's some high stakes racing. Great job by these guys.
And this is for the win here. They're going to get the checkered flag when they come out on the front stretch. This time by, they continue to race side by side. Ethan is going to get the better of Harry right now.
Final chicane. Ethan got a great run out of there. That's going to help him in this final chicane.
You see Harry blinking the lights, just trying to throw him off center a little bit, just kind of put him off his game just a tad, but I think it's going to be all the race for Ethan that these two can handle. It's going to be the checkered flag here at the Le Mans racetrack. Yeah, Ethan's going to get him. You can see Harry Wills gave it all he had. He's going to get sideways. He's going to wreck going across the start-finish line.
But he did get across the start-finish line. That's all that matters. And here we go with down here with
Kyle
Timms
Boss, Team Timms.
Yeah.
Looks like Kyle's going to hold on to it.
Oh, some contact.
Oh, they slowed down quite a bit before they crossed that start-finish line there. Chase Wilson going to cross the line for the fifth position there in class. Blake Scott's still got quite a ways to go. He's exiting the Porsche curves right now. He's your leader. He's got 9.5 seconds, and you know what? I'm pretty proud of what he's done these last couple laps here. He's just been nursing this lead. It was 10.5 seconds, falling down to just under 10, kind of floating around that 9.5 to 10 second mark, and he's just been doing everything he needed to finish off this race. He's going to come off the last corner here and take the checkered flag here in the Pro-Am category. Tell you what, he whooped the field, man. He mopped the floor with those guys. Rich Goulet, 10 seconds behind, takes the checkered flag. That's the second position in class for him. So we wait for more of our drivers to continue to cross the start-finish line. I'd like to take a moment to thank some of our sponsors. Race Anywhere, they're a major distributor of sim racing products based in the UK, specializing in some of the highest quality sim racing brands such as ProSimU, GSI, OBP, and many more. Matthew Plaisance coming into the last couple chicanes here in his Ferrari. 34-second gap there back to Aaron Beaver. Flash of lights, victory celebration for him. I'd also like to thank Go for the Gap. They're an up-and-coming motorsport graphic design and artwork business run by Cami Sturch. You can look up her and all her products there on Etsy. You can see Aaron Beaver. This is just how big a gap that was from Plaisance back to Beaver, and I'm sure Plaisance has got to be pleased with this win. Coming up, you know, the bridesmaid, these last 4 races or something, going all the way back to Silverstone. He's got to be proud with this run here. Aaron Beaver off back-to-back wins at Imola, won both the sprint races. He's going to come home in the second step on the podium. How about IMB Racewear as well? They're a phenomenal company. They offer a huge range of bespoke, fully customizable race and team wear. If you want a full range of all their products, you can go to their website. The link is down below in the description. You got Mark Chapman crossing the start-finish line as well. John Casey out of the last couple chicanes. He'll take the 4th position in the AM category. And Rick Swan crosses the start-finish line as well. And it looks like that is going to conclude the on-track action for today. We're just going to continue to wait another second or two here for the results to finally come across. But John, you know, I'll be honest, it wasn't as exciting as Imola was, but I think that's just what you're going to have at Le Mans. Such a larger track, all these large straightaways kind of lend themselves to a little bit more open racing between the drivers. But I will still say it was super fun to watch this race as well.
Yeah, it really was, and I mean the race was still in question, you know, coming to the checkered flag, and that's all you can ask for in a race. You know, these guys definitely showcase their skills here tonight. Well, this track offers a lot of different opportunities to get yourself in trouble, and these guys really were on it here tonight.
Yeah, we certainly were. Race results here in the pro category, as we just saw, Ethan Bass takes the victory, a half a second back to Harry Willis. There was like 3 different changes for the lead there in the last lap. Phenomenal race put on by those 2 drivers. Kyle Boss rounds out your podium. Dean Timms in 4th, Chase Wilson 5th, James Pierce in 6th. Kai Diel, back-to-back overall race winner. Unfortunately for him, he's going to have to settle for the 7th position. Jeremy Littleton in 8th, and Chris Long, unfortunately, wrecked out about midway through the race. He'll come home in the 9th position. Winning the race in the Pro-Am category was Blake Scott with Rich Calais in 2nd. Shreyas Ventukaraju, he certainly had to fight for that last podium position. Well deserved for him. Justin Russo, Andrew Hewson round out the top 5 with Mark Scott in 6th. Kyle Smith in 7th. Derek Miller and Braden Melling round out the 9-car field. And in the AM category, Matthew Plaisance finally comes home with another victory here. Aaron Beaver, Mark Chapman round out the podium positions. John Casey, Rick Swan 4th and 5th. Greg Brockway, Eric Papineau, and Eli Sasick round out your 8-car field there in the AM category. And while we got all these drivers here, why don't we take a couple of them into the interview room. Take a second here. Matthew Plaisance with us now. Matt, I have to imagine it feels pretty awesome to win after being the bridesmaid for what, like 3 or 4 races in a row, I count.
Not only that, but the last 2 races here at Le Mans, I lost due to running out of fuel. So it's even better.
I can certainly imagine that, my friend. Walk me through the battle that you were having with Aaron, because it looked like for a couple times he was going to best you again, like he had the last couple races. But you came home with the victory there as well. And not just that, though. I mean, he made that mistake there towards the end, and you had like 34 seconds. It had to be a pretty good feeling of like, unless I screw up bigly or I lose the power in or something, victory was pretty much yours.
Yeah, at the start, I was trying to fuel save as much as possible. I saw that I was quicker than him at the last chicane, thinking if I have to dive bomb him, I could probably do it there, but I don't like driving like that. So, but yeah, just fuel saving, and then I was able to jump him in the pits because I guess I didn't have to take as much. And then he had a couple slowdowns, I believe, coming onto the Mulsanne straight that let me by again. But my brake pedal actually started binding up on me about halfway through that race, so I was in panic mode most of the time, actually.
Definitely understand what it's like to have a brake pedal that doesn't necessarily want to comply with you the whole time. Mine has slid off that bottom board where my heels push it too far forward. So I understand that like wide-eyed, oh crap, moment that you have when you realize your brake pedal might not be cooperating. But Matt, before we let you go, I want to make sure you thank everybody you'd like to for your win today.
Yeah, shout out to the team. Always supporting. Braden always reminded me to practice when I can because I work a lot. Shout out to my girlfriend, who's definitely supportive of this ridiculous hobby of ours and never says anything bad about it. So shout out to her.
Well, Matt, a shout out to you for that was a big win for you today. Congratulations for that. And thank you for taking the time to talk to us, man. Really appreciate that as well.
Thank you. Anytime, guys.
That was Matthew Plaisance, winner in the AM category. And I think, John, you've caught up with another driver. See who you got. Probably Blake Scott.
Blake, this is John up in the booth. You got a copy?
I got a copy.
Well, Bud, walk me through your race and describe one thing I'd be interested to hear from your point of view is a transition. You had a big lead, so you didn't have too much to worry about, but the transition between the night and the day, walk me through that transition from you behind the wheel.
That was actually the trickiest part of this race. It was pretty smooth sailing, kind of out there on my own, just putting in lap after lap. And once it started to get dark, it gets really tricky to kind of hit your marks, your apex, and get around this track safely. So that definitely made it interesting, but glad I still came out on top and was able to take the win tonight.
Well, this track is so big, 8 miles to get around it here. You can break it into sections here. Did you have any sections that were giving you any fits, or were you just pretty well on it and were comfortable anywhere on this thing?
Yeah, no, honestly, I had a great setup tonight, thanks to the team, Aerokinetics. Car felt amazing throughout the whole track. Porsche curves felt really solid, not a hiccup. So I was happy to come home and take the win.
Well, we look forward to next week. It's going to be Zolder. What are your thoughts heading into that race?
That is a good question. I don't even own that track yet, so I have to buy it and put in some time this week. So we'll see how I do next week. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I like new tracks, new challenges.
Well, awesome, my friend. We will definitely be looking forward to seeing you tackle that track for the first time next week. Might have to keep you on the screen most of that race to watch that unfold. But right. Hey, I like to give you the floor. I like to give you the floor right now, man. And who would you like to give a shout out to?
Yeah, shout out to the team, Aerokinetics. Providing us setups, putting in all the practice sessions. My pops. He was up there with me tonight. Unfortunately, a couple slowdowns took him out of my draft. But yeah, the pops, grandparents, I'm sure they're watching. But yeah, that's about it. And thank you guys most of all for putting this on and doing the broadcast. It's amazing to watch back. Super fun.
Well, thank you for that. We're learning here, Solo. We enjoy watching it. You guys really do put on a great show, and I'll tell you, to be honest with you, it makes our life a whole lot easier when there's a lot of interesting stuff to talk about, and you guys you guys definitely accomplish that. So we'll see you in Zolder. Get some laps in, and good luck over there on that one.
Alrighty, thank you very much. Have a good night, guys.
Yep, that's our Pro-Am winner. And Austin, who have you caught up with?
Yeah, I got Rich Kelly up here. Came home bridesmaid in the Pro-Am category. Richie had a pretty strong showing there, but at the end, I mean, it was 10 seconds to make up before the end. What's going through your mind in the race to that point?
Really just trying to stay in second. About the time I got to second place, Blake was checked out. I mean, he was just flying. So my job, I told myself, just keep it clean, avoid the slowdowns, and finish as high as you can. Was really hoping to stay in the points lead. I'm not sure how the points work exactly, but I might still be in it. But it's going to be a tough battle there towards the end.
Well, talk me through. I mean, I'm glad you touched on that too. It was a pretty fierce battle between you guys. It almost looked like you guys were just giving it away to him because, I mean, he had like a 2-second lead when you guys started the battle, and you guys just kept going at it for a while there. You were, luckily, though, the one that came out on top and all that, but it looked like the car just wasn't quite handling the way you would have preferred it to in order to chase down the 10 seconds there towards the end. Right? Was there a certain area of the track that you were just fighting the car in particular?
Yeah, the last third of the track, the Lamborghini, at least my setup, the way I had it, just wasn't hooking up right towards the end of the stint. When the car started to get lighter, it just felt real sketchy. That was one thing going through my mind, was trying to stay out of that fight. But to be honest with you, I was like, this looks fun, so I stuck my nose in there to see what could happen. Didn't really think about the big picture, but once I realized what was going on with the the points battle, keeping the eye on the ultimate goal, I kind of let it take place, and then obviously got lucky there, got out in second, and kept it clean.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say we're still pretty early on in the season, so to be thinking about points this early into the going, certainly it helps you kind of fix that mindset of what you want to do and what your goals are, as the season goes on. But Rich, before I let you go, who do you have to thank for your second place run tonight, man?
Oh man, again, Chase Wilson for helping me out. We did a couple practice sessions to help dial in the setup. And you guys too. I mean, you guys make it fun to go back and rewatch it to see all the battles that we missed sitting in the cockpit.
Well, certainly, I really appreciate you saying that. It makes it a lot easier to cover all those battles and make the races interesting when you guys continue to give us phenomenal racing throughout the entire, whether it's 25 and 50 or 75 all through it. So I got to thank you, and I want to thank you too for taking the time to talk to us.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, that was Rich Calais. Finished P2 there in the Pro-Am category. And John, I believe you caught up with our big winner next, Mr. Ethan Bass.
Yeah, Ethan, this is John. You got a copy?
I do have a copy, and I need a drink as well. That's the other copy I need.
Well, I tell you, you closed the deal here tonight, and I think you've earned that drink. Congratulations. Walk me through the final laps there, because I tell you, you had your hands full right up to the very end.
Yeah, I had the hands full, but I needed to get away from Harry and such, everybody else with all the draft games in the first bit. I absolutely had the most mare of lap ones with just not having any grip. So that sent me back, but slowly but surely I need to get by the people who are fuel saving. I don't like the whole fuel save and bump drafting thing. I'm not a big fan of it. I've got such a low car, it's too easy for me to just spin people. But yeah, that was tight at the end there.
I asked another one of the drivers earlier about the day-night transitions. Do you felt like being at night, did you feel stronger compared to your other competition on the track? or did you like in the daylight better? Which one suits you the best?
I really wasn't focusing on the day night, so I really couldn't tell you. I was more focusing on
that's complete focus.
Yeah, I was more focused on trying to keep the gap away from Harry, but I think it was lap 17. I've got a fill calculator and it like blinked momentarily saying it's going to go 20 laps, and I'm like, no, and I lost my flow just a bit through Tetris, and I ended up gifting Harry the draft. Hence, we had that amazing fight on the last lap.
Well, it was an amazing fight there on the last lap, and you like I said, you closed the deal. You got yourself a win here. Congratulations on that. Next week we head up to Zolder. What are your thoughts, and what's your ambition for next week?
The ambition for next week will be just to finish. I don't like Zolder. I'll be honest with everybody. I don't like Zolder. It's not my favorite track in the world. It's not built for GT3s, but we'll do fine. The Orbit Motorsports, powered by Demon Tweaks and Hybrid Tune, will do just fine.
Well, we look forward to seeing you over there. And like I said, congratulations again. Man, I am going to turn the floor over to you. Who would you like to give a shout out for just a fantastic performance tonight?
Other than Hybrid Tune, Demon Tweaks, Sim3D, Fight Color, Cancer, and you boys in the booth, with likes of IMDb for Racewear for prizes, I think that's about everyone I can help. And Jack Styles for the team manager of Orbit, letting me drive this buggered old death trap.
Well, my friend, go have a pint and celebrate, and we'll talk to you down the road, I'm sure.
Oh, trust me, the alcohol's already flowing.
Cheers, my friend. Have a good night.
Thank you very much, and good night.
Well, Austin, back to you here. He's always fun to interview, but I think you've got Kyle Boss here.
Yeah,
Hello.
Kyle Boss, fantastic job there. Just to kind of, you did everything you needed to kind of hold on to the podium there towards the end, and I was really kind of, I'm sure from your side of that, race, you were hoping that our two leaders are going to get together in that last lap, and you'd be able to come up there and sneak away with it.
After my little incident in the Porsche curves, I was a little frustrated. The tires were basically ice, and I thought they had enough temp in them by lap 2, and they clearly didn't. So I put it right in the wall. But we were able to fight back and do some crazy fuel-saving strategies to kind of get ourselves around. So can't complain, I suppose.
Yeah, well, we caught the last bit of that with you having that little bit of a slip up in the Porsche curves, but to be fair, it's kind of going to just turn into one of those races where you got to ask yourself what could have been by the end. But you did a phenomenal job, and just talk us through, especially for the folks at home, what you have to do to change in your mind, and especially change on the fly what you're doing in terms of fueling the car and coming down pit road, because you dug yourself a large hole that you recovered from quite nicely there.
Yeah, strategy-wise, the Merc loves to burn fuel. There's no denying that. So you really have to kind of alter the way you drive the car. You can't really push it as deep anymore, and you're really, really coasting, especially on those last 2 laps, to make sure I had some level of margin of safety. I was coasting from like the 250 meter board just to try and make sure I could get that. And you really just got to turn yourself into, all right, just focus on the exit, coast as hard as you can. Keep her in a higher rev range, shift earlier, short shift, everything changes. So you go from really trying to push it and really maximize your gear usage and RPM usage to, can I bog it in this corner? Can I get away with it using a higher gear here? How far can I get away with coasting? And those all kind of culminate to you saving pretty much gobs of fuel if you can, and but at the detriment, obviously, of your lap time. And Dean was just getting closer and closer, and my car was damaged. My steering was bent. I didn't have any top end anymore, so it was just a matter of time until he caught up. So I really tried to focus hard on just maximizing my fuel efforts to try and stave off the inevitable.
Well, you did it, though. At the end of the day, you do come out of here with another podium finish for yourself. And I can't remember what the finishing order was like last week, but I believe this might be your first podium of the season.
This is in the bigger endurance. At Imola, I was P1 at Imola in the sprint, and finished P4 in the endurance there. And this will be my second podium, I suppose you'd say.
Yeah, my notes for Imola are very limited because my iRacing I couldn't get all the notes. But regardless of that, man, I got to thank you for taking the time to talk to us. But who do you have to thank for bringing home this podium tonight?
Yeah, once again, I gotta thank my teammates at Solaritas for helping me be able to practice and get a little bit better and learn how, especially field saving. That's always been my number one thing I just can't do. I'm just kind of a foot to the floor type of guy. So they've, my teammate Loris has really helped with my fuel saving strategies. I have to thank my buddies Duca and Noah for being in the stream chat. Cheered me on, keep me going. And I got to thank, of course, IMB and Major's Garage for helping get this car squared away. And we got a rocket ship out there, and I'm gonna keep pushing. Hopefully, do right by him.
Certainly, man. Last question, spur of the moment thing. You mentioned a stream chat. What are you streaming on? What's your username so we can go find you later?
Unfortunately, I'm not streaming yet. I'm not sure yet, but this is in your own chat there at
Okay.
SimSport
Okay,
Solutions.
okay.
So they're in there, hyping me up. So shout out to SimSport again for everything you guys do, really.
Yeah, well, Kyle, congratulations on the podium, and good luck next week heading to Zolder, man.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
That was Kyle Boss. He's going to be the driver that rounds out the podium in the pro category. And honestly, John, that was a phenomenal race again, and I'm so glad that we came here for it. The racetrack at Le Mans is just phenomenal. And like I said, it's got to be a staple in every championship.
Yeah, it really does. And, to be honest with you, too, big track, it'd have been really easy for these guys to get spread out and, whatnot. But, we didn't even have to really try to fill time. These guys put on a race from the drop of the green to the checkered flag at the end. So, you know what? It's going to be a lot of fun. Now we're going to move on, though. We're going to completely shift gears for Zolder next week. If you thought this was exciting, please come back in a week and tune in, because Zolder, I would say that's going to be the most technical track we've had to date, and I think it's going to be the tightest racing because it's narrow, windy. That is going to be a fun evening to watch these guys showcase their skills on that track.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's really just a kind of flop if you go from one of the longest tracks on iRacing with a lot of long straightaways to now Zolder. It's just a different kind of beast. It's a lot more technical. There's a lot of big elevation changes and a lot of really tight chicanes to have to manage. But regardless, phenomenal race. Real quickly, I just want to thank our sponsors again. They're the people that are behind the scenes making this thing possible. Race Anywhere. If you have any sim racing products that you need or just want to look into, maybe you got a little extra walk around money, go check them out. They got a ton of the huge brands. Go for the Gap if you got bare walls around your house. Seriously, check out Cami Sturgis Etsy store to find different little things you can put up there to make your space seem a lot less empty or bland. And then last but not least, IMB Racewear. If you've got your own, different little teams or what you want to have for shirts, they got a full range of products that you can customize to Timbuktu and back. Seriously, go check them out. And last but not least, on behalf of myself, Austin Belke, my booth mate John Hine, and Daniel Costello, and everyone else behind the scenes, thank you so much for watching and have a good night.